Well, good morning, everyone. And once again, welcome to another live this morning. Hope you're having a great start to your day. And nice to have you on with us. Let me see if I can say hello to a few of our friends that come on when they can and say hello. And we appreciate your faithfulness to this program. Let me see here if we get a few folks on with us. Here we are, I think so. Make sure this is off. Okay, let me see. Who's number one? Brahim. You're it this morning that I see first. Sandy in Fergus Falls, Minnesota, how are you? Bonnie and Fran from Orangeville. Amber from New Jersey. Good morning to you, Amber from New Jersey. Thanks for coming on. Elaine, St. John's, Newfoundland. Donna from Newfoundland. Rosalinda from the Kidneys of Canada, which is Niagara Falls. Adeline, how are you? Shauna, Anne, or Annie. Frances Marie, Diane from Thunder Bay. Bonnie, Little Britain, good morning to you. Roxanne from Alberta. Anne, St. Catharines, Ontario. Georgie, Halifax, Nova Scotia. Nick from our staff. Karen, how are you? Dennis, good morning. Patricia, how are you from Florida? Marlo, Rita, Janine, good morning to you from West Kelowna. Beautiful. Cheryl from West Virginia. Nice to have you on. Sandy, Chilliwack, British Columbia. Nativity, Mary, Gander, Newfoundland. And Mark, how are you? Jean from Ohio. What are we learning today, Jean? Well, we'll see. I'm answering questions. I still didn't get to all the questions that we had on Friday, and then I did it again on Monday, and I still got a few more to do, so we'll see. We'll see how far we get. Another Patricia, John from Elgin, Illinois. Donna, how are you? Saying good morning to Elaine. Brenda, Linda, St. Jude, Quebec. Carol from West Virginia. Maria, Mary, Elaine, good morning. Sandy from Vancouver, Washington. Luella from West Tennessee. Adrian, how are you? Vince, Wanda, Virginia. Heather, Miramichi. Cheryl, Mary saying good morning to Dave and Helga from Anaheim, California. Well, good morning to you. Yalao. Kevin says, I'm in the clouds after the Blue Jays game. 18 innings yesterday. Me too. Joan, Jeanette, Mertzin, how are you? Mara, Lorraine, couple more. Sue from Bolton. Rain Cloud, how are you? From Michigan. And Helga, Gail, we love you guys. Lisa Marie, Jean, always good questions. Always awesome answers. Well, thanks again for tuning in. Cheryl, Milika, Susan, from Cape Breton, Nova Scotia. Norma, there's Doc McEwen. I see your name. How are you? Elaine, Cecilia, Marlene. We love you guys. Hi, Judy from New Brunswick. Good morning to you. Okay, let's get to a few questions. We should be able to finish this morning, okay? Okay. Let's start with coffee. Never heard of it. Let's see. Do I have my cup? The good for me coffee. You guys know that coffee is the real vitamin C. Study after study after study after study. There's two things I want you to drink. Water, 2 liters a day, 64 ounces for my American friends, and coffee. And the sweet spot for coffee is what? 4 cups of coffee a day. Okay? Now, try not to denature your coffee, because this is the question that's being asked, okay? And it's asked by Sandra. And Sandra, we appreciate the question. Here's the question. Is there any nutritional value in coffee? If you just stopped right there, 150 studies on the benefits of coffee. Okay, but you add a few things, Sandra, okay? And I appreciate your honesty. How about when I add regular milk and a teaspoon of honey? Well, look, try not to look, I get it, okay? People are trying to add things to their coffee, and if you can't take it black, I get it. You put some cream in coffee, who cares? Still very good for you, okay? But milk, I try and avoid that. And there's a reason, Sandra, that I talk about that is because milk, the nutritional value of milk that you get in the grocery store is very, very much denatured, okay? Why? Because they pasteurize it. Part of it is pasteurized at 1200 degrees, okay? It's the law. It's the law. Canada, USA. You have a law. And you need to pasteurize milk. Okay, so that's one thing. I can live with that. But milk, when they take the fat out of it, like milk, if you have a cow in the backyard and you're milking the cow, not that I ever did, okay? Did I ever milk a cow in my life? No. But here's what I know. There's a lot of fat when you milk a cow, okay? Even when we were kids, the milkman would deliver milk to our house, okay? Like people said, like, what century were you born in? But, okay, they did. We actually had a milkman in our hometown when I was a little kid delivering milk via horses. Like my grandchildren say, Grandpa, were you born in the days of Noah? Just about. But guys, I'm serious. Now, you have to take that milk in a glass bottle and you had to shake the life out of it. Why? There was so much fat in that milk. Okay? So much fat. And milk was much better. And then the geniuses in the food industry, you know what they did? Started taking fat out of milk. Well, now milk becomes much sweeter. And I had a name for it on this radio show, and it was called White Pepsi. Because it's very, very sweet. You don't want to put that in your coffee, okay? Look. Try and switch to cream. Why does it have to be milk? Okay? Now, you know what's better would be a little bit of coconut milk. A lot of fat in coconut milk. Okay? The idea is when you take the fat out, now you got a lot more sugar. Okay? A lot more sugar, and I don't want that. Now, that's one, okay? So try and be careful with that. Numero 2, You talked about honey. Honey, okay? Listen, honey. Honey is good, okay? It is good. The problem that we have in our day and age, when 93% of the population have trouble with insulin resistance, 93%. You know what that means? 93% of the population are on the Titanic. That's what it means. Because insulin resistance is a huge factor in heart disease, cancer, Alzheimer's, diabetes. Obviously, it's the cause of diabetes. Okay? And so when that's why you don't hear me talking about honey very much. Not that honey, it's got some benefits. Honey, for sure. You know, it's a biblical food. But I'm always careful because people, they abuse things. And if you're in that 93% of the population, if you have insulin resistance, and one of the best ways to test for insulin, Doc, how do you know if I have insulin resistance? Get me your blood work, and if your A1C is above 5.4, you got insulin resistance. Okay? You can get your fasting insulin tested and that's all right. I like A1C. I've had enough experience. I've looked at tens of thousands, way more than that. Let's say, I don't know, 50,000 blood work, 100,000 blood work over the years. I'm telling you, if your A1C is above 5.4, you've got insulin resistance, you're on the Titanic, and you better take care of that. And even if you only have one coffee a day with 1 teaspoon of honey in it, if you're in that boat, if you're on that boat, you know what I mean? That's why you don't hear me talking about it too much. Is there nutritional value to honey? Yeah, there is. But, again, you got to be careful if you're in that group. And I have to speak in generalities, and if I don't have blood work in front of me, I'm just telling you my parameters. I put guardrails on people because of what I study the most, which is insulin resistance, and at the root cause, okay? At the root cause of chronic disease, it's the major factor, one of the major factors in chronic disease, okay? The other one is leaky gut. Okay, let's talk about, that was a good question. That was, who asked that question now? Who asked that question? Okay, that was Sandra. Another Sandra, I think, unless it's the same one. Okay? Here's another question. What deficiency would be involved in a person who has a stroke? Okay? Is there deficiency? Okay? I haven't really thought about that so much, but let me just give you a couple of things about a stroke. What did we just talk about? Okay? You know what sugar does in your bloodstream? Very toxic. Very, very, very toxic. Okay? Your body knows that. A lot of people don't know that because they talk moderation. I talk elimination. If you do nothing else for your health, nothing else, if you eliminated sugar out of your diet, you'd be doing a good thing. Okay? You'd be doing a good thing because your body is dedicated to getting rid of sugar. Sugar is toxic. It's not allowed to park in your bloodstream. Because why would they say that? Why do I say that? Why is sugar not allowed to park in your bloodstream? That's why you have a pancreas. That's why your pancreas secretes insulin. Insulin is a traffic cop. It does not allow parking in a no parking zone. If you were to empty your 5 liters of blood, you'd have less than a teaspoon of sugar in there. Why is that? Because your body's smart. You're fearfully and wonderfully made. Okay? Your body's got built-in radar. Sugar is parking out, 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 out. If you have a donut, don't do it, but if you did, and you got about 8 or 9 teaspoons of sugar in there, do you know what happens? You secrete an enormous amount of insulin to get rid of that sugar because it's in a no parking zone. So when you ask about a stroke, think about that for a minute. You're asking a good question. What is the problem? Well, you asked it this way. What deficiency? Well, first of all, let me just tell you, the biggest thing is not a deficiency. The biggest thing in heart disease, okay, and stroke is blood vessel damage, and there's no worse thing than sugar. Okay? Sugar destroys blood vessels. And I always say, if you don't believe me, ask a diabetic who has trouble controlling blood sugar, right? You got diabetes. What is that? Well, that's trouble controlling blood sugar. So what happens? Well, they are much more likely to have eye problems, much more likely to have heart problems, much more likely to get Alzheimer's. Why is that? Type 3 diabetes. It's sugar. They're much more likely to have kidney problems. They're much more likely to have limb problems, including neuritis, neuralgia. Okay? Neuropathy. Do you understand what I'm saying there? So, that's not a deficiency per se, but that's one of the major drivers. And, there's a lot of diabetes in my family. For those watching this program or listening on a podcast, my background is diabetes coming out my ears. Okay? It's in our family, big time. My daddy, big time. Okay? And I look like my dad. So do you think I have some predisposition for diabetes? Sure I do. I know that. I have to be very careful. Sugar is destructive. Okay? Sugar is destructive to your blood vessels. You have to understand that. Okay? Now, when you get sugar destroying blood vessels, your body, what does it do? It tries to protect your blood vessels by laying down some scar tissue. What do we call that? Plaque. Okay? Plaque. Atherosclerosis. Again, sugar is a big factor in atherosclerosis, hardening of the arteries, where calcium gets laid down in your bloodstream and on your blood vessels. They become sticky. They become hard. They lose their elasticity. Okay? Now, You're asking about a deficiency. What would be another factor if you have too much calcium in your blood vessels? What deficiency of that is that? What is the antidote to calcium in your blood vessels? Vitamin K2. How do you get vitamin K2? When you have an egg, when you eat meat, and when you have dairy like cheese and butter. Why is that so good for you? Well, you have vitamin K2. Vitamin K2 takes calcium out of your bloodstream. As a supplement, you can do it, but I'd rather you eat it. Why wouldn't you eat an egg? Bring me an egg, okay? Put it in this hand and bring me broccoli, because everybody says broccoli is probably one of the best vegetables that you can eat, okay? I did a survey one time on my radio show. Give me the best vegetable in your mind that is the best for you. And broccoli won. Okay? Broccoli won. It won the contest. People had this idea, yeah, broccoli is really good for you. Well, it's good for you. I'm not going to deny that. But you can't put it up against an egg. It ain't even close. It's not close. If you measure the nutritional value of an egg versus broccoli, it's not close. Broccoli loses by a mile. So people that are vegetarians or vegans, God love them, but they're wrong. They're wrong. Someone posted yesterday, okay? Unless you're eating grass-fed beef, it's all toxic. Well, what about fruits and vegetables? What about what they spray in the soil and the lack of magnesium and the lack of nutrients in our soil? It's just universal. All the pesticides and herbicides and the plastic, you don't think that's not in our food supply? Good luck with that. All I'm saying is, when you look at the nutritional value of an egg compared to anything out of the vegetable or fruit kingdom, I'm sorry, it's not close. It's not close. So, why wouldn't you have an egg? Why wouldn't you eat meat? Why wouldn't you eat dairy? I know dairy gets a bad rap. It's terrible. It's terrible the way they treat dairy. Because dairy's good for you. 100%. Now look, I've said this a million times. People have trouble with dairy. Is it dairy's fault or your fault? Okay, I used to tell my patients, Doc, I'm allergic to dairy. I don't do well with dairy. I said, okay, the problem's not butter. The problem is not cheese. The problem is you. It's your system. It's your gut. You got leaky gut. You have the problem. The dairy, they denature it, like we talked about milk already. But it isn't the dairy. It's you. There's so much autoimmune today, so many allergies to foods, and it's you. It's not the dairy. Okay? Anyway, so we talked about a deficiency. There's a huge deficiency today in vitamin K2. There's a huge deficiency in vitamin D. Vitamin D protects your blood vessels. People that, vitamin D protects everything in your body. Everything. And there's a lot of studies on low levels of vitamin D and blood vessels and damage to blood vessels. Vitamin D could be a deficiency. Vitamin K2 could be a deficiency. Vitamin B12. B12, big time. It's so important, and people don't realize that. Medicine has forgotten about the benefits and the importance of B12. It was amazing to me that B12 used to be such an important vitamin, even in medicine, and they've forgotten all about it. Okay. I can keep answering that question for a long time because, and let me give you another one because it just come into my mind, and I should have put it up there right at the top. You know what a major deficiency is that we have today is magnesium. Magnesium. Magnesium is not in the soil anymore. It's not in the plants anymore. It's there a little bit, but not much. And what does magnesium do? It relaxes your blood vessels. Because when you get a stroke or a heart attack, blood vessels, they lose their elasticity. Magnesium relaxes blood vessels. That's why it's an important treatment even in high blood pressure. How do you get high blood pressure, right? The resistance in your blood vessels. Plaque, we talked about, okay? And like damage and a lack of magnesium. And today, we have low levels of another thing, nitric oxide. Nitric oxide actually opens up your blood vessels. Why is it so low today, nitric oxide? That's why I bring you back to B12. And by the way, Navitol is famous for elevating your levels of nitric oxide. Okay? Okay. Let's see who else asked me a question. I want to see if I can get done. Raphael is asking about someone with dialysis. Look, dialysis, remember now, okay? So this is a different puppy altogether. Now the kidneys are not working at all. So I hate to give anything. I have to be careful what I say here, okay? So, you just have to, if your kidneys are not working and you need dialysis, okay. I mean, this is another condition altogether. And look, one thing you need for sure is H2O, water, okay? And you can drink coffee. Coffee's good for your kidneys. Like in terms of high protein, I'd be more careful. Like if your kidneys are working good, it's not protein, and you better lay off the sugar. Because guess who gets the most problems with dialysis? As you saw the rise in diabetes, okay? In the 1950s, 1960s, even the 1970s, diabetes was pretty rare. Diabetes has been around forever, okay? But it was rare, not today. Almost 50% of the population are pre-diabetic. And it's higher than that because medicine doesn't even take into consideration metabolic syndrome, which is insulin resistance. We talked about that, okay? So dialysis, like now you got to be really careful, okay? You just got to be really careful. Look, in terms of people going into ketosis with dialysis, I've seen some studies where you're not eating or very little carbohydrate. But again, I'm very hesitant when they're at that stage, unless they were one of my patients. And even then I would have them consulting with their their doctor big time. Okay, just gotta be careful with that. Okay. Thank you very much. What supplements would I recommend, Rafaela, with dialysis? Water soluble. Like, you got to be on vitamin D, which is not like, and I know doctors will be reticent to give you that or to recommend that. I understand that, but they're really not right about that. Even though vitamin D is a fat soluble vitamin. Okay. Anyway. Okay, let me see here if we can keep going. Tracy, what are your suggestions for redness around the mouth? Usually I find you've got a fungal infection. It's in your bloodstream. It's now in your tissue, and it takes a long time to get rid of that. Oil of oregano, probiotics, oil of oregano, probiotics. Did I say oil of oregano and probiotics? Well, if I didn't, I meant to, okay? So, Sherry, okay, I'm getting some noise behind me. Can you hear that? Can you hear me? That's the key, okay? Can you hear me? All right, give me a thumbs up. I want to see it. Okay, let me see here. I can't, oh, there's a thumbs up. Okay, you can still hear me. Okay, and you know what? I'm going to do this one thing that Gail is asking, okay? I think I'm just about done here. Yeah, okay, I think I'm just about done. Gail's asking a question. I'm going to do a little bit of a separate teaching on this tomorrow, okay? So let me just make a note. It's about live blood cell analysis, okay? So a lot of people like that. I used to teach practitioners live blood cell analysis, okay? And you're asking me questions about it, so let me just make a note and we'll talk about it, because I don't want to just give you a short answer without explaining what I'm going to say. Okay, guys, we love you dearly, sincerely. Thank you for being the best audience in the world. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your faithfulness. Thank you for being smart, because you're smart. Okay. You all get honorary degrees in nutrition. Okay? That's how smart you are. Okay. We love you dearly and talk to you soon.